Welcome to the People's Internet. In this episode, we'll be talking about gaming, the legislation against it, and the reasons people have for being against legislation against it. Curious about the real proliferation of gamers, I asked our panelists about the games they were familiar with and their opinions on them.
Play a lot of Yahoo Chess, and occasionally somebody will lend me a game that I'll pick up and get bored with.
Rarely. Very, very occasionally, Tetris. That's about it.
I play quite a few video games online, mostly Flash-based, and not very long period of time. It's just a short little game just to escape, I guess, a little for a while.
I've been playing video games since I was about 6 years old. Started off on things like the Commodore 6420, the Atari 2600. I've played all the way up through modern systems with the PS3 and the Xbox 360 and the Wii. Computer games of all different types. It's hard to just single out a single one.
Many have expressed concerns relating to the growing trend of addiction. Many have expressed concerns about the growing trend of addiction to online games. Our panelists chimed in with their opinions.
Either the people that are addicted do not have anything going on outside of the game for them to keep them away from it, or the people that are addicted do not want to be involved with real life and need some kind of help from, obviously real life friends, family members, concerned people.
I think that those people saying that they have an addiction should learn some self-discipline. I don't think that it's an addiction at all. I think it's just a desire to avoid their real life in order for something that they're actually good at. These people need to get the hell out of their basements and into the real world and be social for a change.
Sometimes I miss my friends.
When World of Warcraft first came out, it was very annoying to sit around a group of people all at their respective laptops playing World of Warcraft.
Local congressional hopeful Hank Clapton recently issued this internet address stating his wishes to regulate gaming.
Good evening, America. I've come to address a very, very serious important for every mother and father raising young Americans in our great country. Over the course of the last few years, the video game industry has been pushing the limits of the American government's willingness not to adopt censorship practices over the mass media. For instance, your children have been subjected to violent and sometimes pornographic material in the video games that they commonly play. This practice must end. So where do parents stand? They stand alone on this horrid battlefield of awful ideas in this new liberal marketplace of ideas. Their children are being filled with mud and slander and every vile concept that you can fill an American patriot's head with. For instance, 78% of young suburban children subjected to violent video games in the early 90s later committed violent crimes. Suburbia is in flames. Like any warrior on any battlefield, parents need weapons in this war, and I'm prepared with legislation to equip them with the tools necessary to properly monitor, surveil, and control their children's intake of media content and information. With my bill... excuse me. Yes, honey. That's great. I'll talk to you later. I love you. Sorry. My daughter learned a new psalm at Bible study. Would you rather have your children learning Bible verses or learning new Ebonics on their Xbox and PlayStations and GameCubes and Nintendo Wiis?
Our panelists saw things somewhat differently.
I don't feel the content should be controlled. I think the content is up to the creator, but I think they should be labeled so that any purchaser would know whether or not it's appropriate content for the age of their child or person buying it.
No. Personally, I believe that children need to be taught that a video game is entertainment, as it is, and is not an example of what to what to do or how to conduct yourself in the real world.
Parenting has the most effect. I grew up with a lot of violent video games. I was playing Grand Theft Auto for quite a while, and right around the time I started driving, it didn't affect my driving one bit, mostly because of the way I was raised. Because of that, there's no way you can blame video games solely for what is happening to our youth. It is all on parenting.
No, not at all. It's kind of a sick thing to say, and I'm not sure whether I want to say it on the camera, but part of me hopes that, not hopes, but wonders what would happen if somebody, say, killed his father-in-law and said he got the idea from Hamlet, or crucified somebody and said he got the idea from a book that he had read. I don't think that there's anything different about video games, except they may be more visceral because it's an image and not text, but I'd have big problems with any kind of censorship, so I think that controlling the content from that end is reprehensible to the American way of life.
Finally, I asked a self-proclaimed gamer his take on the situation.
So, why do I like video games? Well, for one thing, being somebody who was little in high school, I didn't really have much of a chance to play sports. But one area I did excel at, which threw most everybody else for a loop, was video games, because it required a much better mind than most high school students had at the time. Which leads me on to my further point of legislation. Like some stupid high school football player trying to get in some cheerleader's pants, the politicians are trying to appeal to their voting base by saying that there's some kind of threat to their kids and that they should stop letting their kids play video games, or that the government should tell parents what video games that their kids allow. My main counterexample to this entire argument is this, GTA 3. If anybody had actually played this game, such as Hillary Clinton or Joe Lieberman, who so decry it, they would see that you can play the entire game without ever actually having to kill anybody but criminals. Or, crackheads and other such people who, given their vigilantism, probably wouldn't object too much. And so this legislation, like crack in all of our neighborhoods, creates a huge black hole in that it requires federal monies to force compliance, but compliance is not forthcoming because, like every other copyright law, who the hell is actually going to follow it? It's not like there's a policeman with a gun to your head the entire time. So parents, if you really, really want your kids to stop playing video games, just give them a book. Like, if you want to find out what your kids are doing, just ask them. Instead of using spy bots on their computer, or making sure that they can only play certain video games or do certain things, why don't you do things with them? Like take them out for a hike, or give them a copy of Alice in Wonderland, or just not give them a video game system, or their own TV. It's really kind of simple, but if you want to let the government just come in and dictate what you're going to do, then be my guest.